What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the HBCU Sports and Entertainment Summit. My name is Cailee Copes, a recent graduate from Howard University, and today I'm sitting down with my co-host,
Uche White-Thorpe, a graduate of Hampton University.
And today we're here with our guest, Arthur McAfee. How are you today, Mr. McAfee?
I'm doing well, Cailee. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us.
Yes.
So please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I am currently the Senior Vice President of Football Operation for Policy and Education at the National Football League. I am a graduate of Morehouse College and Howard University School of Law.
Awesome.
Is that a good start?
Yes, absolutely. That is amazing.
Very good. Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about how you got your start in your career?
Certainly. So I was, as an undergraduate at Morehouse, I played basketball and baseball until basketball for the 4 years that I was in school, and baseball for my freshman and sophomore year. And the baseball team was discontinued at the end of my sophomore year. So I finished just the last 2 years on playing basketball. I was a political science major. And so I graduated with aspirations of attending law school following college. So that is sort of my intro to the sports space. I will say that, I was one of the fortunate ones that my father and my family's business is sports. And so my father happened to be the athletic director and the basketball coach at Morehouse during the time that I was, prior to me arriving there, as well as while I was there and after I left. And so my introduction to sports and law initially came from it being part of our family business.
Love that. Absolutely love that. So how do you think that your first position really helped to shape you professionally? Your first position as, the assistant basketball coach at Morehouse. Yeah.
Well, so that was really very interesting, right? So when I graduated, I said I graduated with a degree in political science with aspirations going to law school. And as it so happens, and with the interest in sports. And so I worked with, I coached when I was in college, I coached with some of the professional coaches during their summer camps. And, I was always interested in coaching. And so one of the things that happens when we all apply to go to graduate school, our wishes don't always come true at the time we want them to. And so my first year, upon graduating, I was not accepted to law school. And as I had conversations with my mentor, who happened to be my father, we talked about what does the coaching space look like in the future, and what does it mean to be a coach in the college space. And one of the things that he stressed upon me was that coaching requires not just being in the space where you're a coach, but you also, if you're going to coach at the collegiate level, and particularly at historically Black colleges, you would also be hired as faculty as opposed to just a coach. And so you would need to have a master's degree to be an efficient and effective employee as a teacher or instructor, as well as a coach for an athletic department. Now, all of that has changed since that time, right? And I don't know that coaches now are hired as part of the academic faculty at universities anymore, but it's a whole new system as we now see. But that was the impetus for that, right? So my interest in coaching, my father gave me the opportunity to work with him after playing for him for 4 years to work in that space. And so that's how it came about. It was a delayed aspirations for entering into graduate school or law school at the time. And so it was delayed for a year with the anticipation that I would come back to coaching after I finished law school.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So oftentimes young people are told it's important to stick to your role and don't change companies too often. Don't change your role. However, over your career, you've had the opportunity to take on a number of important roles with a lot of different impressive companies. So how did you know, like, it was time for you to move to the next role and really challenge yourself with the new role?
Yeah, I think that comes with being comfortable with yourself and quickly identifying what are your goals from a career standpoint.
Right.
So I had the opportunity to go to law school at Howard, and coming out of Howard, learned a lot about law and policy, which in my mind coincided with my interest in the business side of sport, which I sort of had family experience with, right? So we knew a long time ago that sports was entertainment, sports was business, and is also in our family conversations, it was always political. And so the opportunity to be in law school and learn the law and how it might apply to the sports industry at a time where it wasn't really necessarily popular to be in the space where sports and business and law were all conjoined there. So what became the guiding light for me in the sports space, in this space was, or in the professional space, was identifying where I could be or where I would work that would have political or policy, we call policy impact, right? So that was my, some people call it now the North Star, is what I've learned to understand was my reason for work, right? That I wanted to be involved in something that was much greater than the individual sport, the person, and then you try to find the greatest impact. And the way I found that was through policy making. And then so the policy making became that. As we try to learn in our development, in the progression of careers, the question that you ask about when do you know it's time? And I think that's a very difficult question for people, right? People have been working for a long time and still don't know when it's time to change.
Especially in school. They're constantly telling you, like, stick to it. Do not change. Like,
yes.
Don't find work.
That's correct, right? And it's okay. It is okay to change. Between one of my jobs, my mom said to me, I can't believe you're going to leave that one job that's great paying, it's got a great pension, to go to this other job that is really risky, right?
Right.
And I said, yes, but that's what you prepped me for, right? And so, and so I think that's the age-old question about how long do you stay? What have you learned? How do you apply it? Right. And so that's why I say it is important that not so much now that you stay at one place, but wherever you are, you learn as much as possible. You make as many contacts as possible to build out your network. And I think you stay core to what your true principles are in terms of your purpose for work. And for me, as I said before, policy making was what I enjoyed most. And it's something I learned that I liked in my second job. So in my first job at the NCAA, where we conducted all the investigations for rule infractions, I had a chance to work with college presidents, alumni, parents, athletes, and coaches. In my second job, I represented athletes, and our job was to sign athletes, negotiate their contracts, and then sign more athletes and negotiate their contracts and manage those athletes' careers, right? So we ultimately had about 100 clients at our firm, and I worked with those football players for the most part, but that was 100 players. And I worked with them to make their careers better. So I worked with them individually. And then the third job came along, and that was at the NFL Players Association. And the connection there was, and this is where I realized at the moment, wow, you know what? I love working with the players, and I love working at helping them advance their careers and protecting their interests individually. And even though we had 100, it was still representing each one individually, not collectively.
Right.
And the opportunity came to work at the Players Association, NFL Players Association, and the light bulb went off again where, hey, this is a perfect time to change. Why? Because you continue to work with the players that you said you wanted to assist. You get to go back and do the policy work that you started out doing at the NCAA. And now you're in a space where I'm not representing just 100 players. We have 1,800 to 2,000 players. And we get to determine what the rules are for the sport of football and their employment and their benefits and career. What better job could you have if you're a policy person, right? So so to me, that was the fundamental piece was that what I've truly enjoyed was understanding sports as a business, entertainment, and it being political that drove those decisions. And it's the same. And so that was really the driving force. And that's what I would say to people, to try to find that underlying piece of core values that you establish for yourself in terms of how and why you want to work.
Yes, that's absolutely amazing, especially being able to, find two things that you really love and combine them. That's absolutely amazing. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure a lot of young people are going to relate to this and trying to find like what they really want to do.
Yes. And it takes time, right? And this is one of the things that I like to say to lots of, so even to my students is that, it takes time. And that's one of the things that I also had to learn, right? That my career didn't start and then just take off, right? It started and it was a gradual progression. And, we learned that it takes time to make a network, to get people to trust you, to show people that you're competent, and to show people that you're reliable. And, you develop those fundamental things, and then it takes time to grow. I mean, that's, you're talking to someone who's been in the sports business for over 25 plus years in that. And my timeline is longer than some and shorter than others, right? They get to higher levels of their industry. And much like what we learned in law school and being an undergrad, that there are several different paths to success, and your journey is not necessarily someone else's journey, but along the way, you celebrate your colleagues' success, and hopefully they'll celebrate your success as you move forward.
Absolutely.
And for me personally, I love hearing that, everything that you just mentioned now, because sometimes we can get lost in school and feel like, there's only one path and there's no other way, we can go. Yeah. So kind of a question that I had for you was, you went to law school at Howard. What would you say were some of the things that you were able to take from your time at Howard that you're able to now implement in work today?
So, well, I would say that the strategy behind critical thinking was developed at law school, right? So that, not that we didn't do it at Morehouse, but it was honed at Howard through the process of preparing yourself for the practice of law. It was, and I will say this, it was the first time that I had freedom to study all day. So when I was an undergrad, my schedule was controlled by practice, right? So I was at practice starting from September when we roll in to February when we finished with basketball, and then we started with baseball. So my time was filled with time management skill sets to finish in 4 years, play those two sports, the first 2 years, and then play basketball on the way out. When I got to law school, the thing that was most interesting was I had all this freedom on the back end. We finished class at 1:00 and we were done for the day. And that was new to me, right? And so being able to, again, move from that time management I had in college to get to class, travel representing this institution, to a place where now I finish in the afternoon at 1:00 and I have all this time to study. And I was like, okay, so this is what college should have been like if I didn't play athletics, right? You have this time, and you're supposed to do well, right? You got to do well. You can't, you just. And so being at Howard, it gave me the opportunity to just sort of focus in and just do that one thing. My job was to make it through law school, learn the process, learn to think in different ways. As they call it, think like a lawyer. But it's really the critical process of the method in which we learn. And so that's the part that I've been able, and that teaching is consistent throughout all law schools. And I'm assuming that I would say that business school would be the same for the business school people, right? That wherever you are, that process is the process you will use no matter where you are when you're out at work. And then, the things that I share with my daughter is that no matter what you learn, at some point you have to apply it. And so you want to be in a situation where you apply what you've learned in the process.
Sounds good. And, you are a proud, graduate of 2 HBCUs. So we can't forget about that.
Yes. No, that's right.
Kind of going back to what Cailee was able to, ask you before, when it came to kind of your jump to different positions, a lot of the time, again, maybe some college students may feel like, I want to get into sports. I want to get into this. I wanted to get into that, but maybe don't know that route to maybe get to that position. So what is maybe some advice that you would give, some students looking at this now that are trying to get into sports that maybe don't know how to get directly into what they want to do?
Yeah. So, this is the best part about programs that you guys are hosting. And this is the opportunity for young people to learn about the business of sport. At my time, or in my early years, none of this was available, right? So this is, so I started my career without a lot of programming that to assist people interested in sports as a business or, and so being here is the first thing. The second thing is now understanding the broad spectrum of sport as a business and finding your avenue as you would do if you were going to go work at Apple, right? As engineering computer company, but that company looks for engineers to develop product. They also look for people to assist them with marketing that product. Same as sports, right? So there's a product that's available that's where they put on the games, but people have to sell the game. People have to market the game. There's law behind it. And so programs like this introduce all the students and young people who are interested in the business of sport. It shows the different avenues that are available. It's one of the things that we try to do at the National Football League through our HBCU programming is to highlight what our industry does, particularly at the NFL. What are the business opportunities here? Right. So if you're in accounting, we have a finance group. If you're in marketing, we have a marketing sponsorship team. If you're in law, we have 2 groups of lawyers, one that does labor relations and then those that do transactions to support all of the things that the business side of what we do. We have an IT department, right? So if you're in the IT, not only in the lawyers work in the IT group for intellectual property support, right? And then we are a media company. We have a network out in Los Angeles. And so we have producers, we have hosts, journalists, and we have 2 journalists that are from Howard University that are on the network. We have a producer that's from Howard University that's at the network. And so that understanding that that's the business of all of what we do, there are several avenues to points of entry. Journalists. So on our website, we have people who write for us. The clubs have that. And, one of the things I used to say is that all of this is available now. At a time when I was finishing law school, many of the clubs didn't even have lawyers on staff. The lawyers were at the league office or at the union. And then the lawyers that supported the teams were the lawyers that were managed the business of the owners, the business interests of the owners, not in their other business, not just with their sports business. And so my avenue at the time was, all right, so when I come out of law school, I'm going to apply to all of the law firms that represent all of the owners of all of the different leagues, and then try to apply generally to each of the clubs. And that's how I know the clubs didn't have anything because, right, even when I started at the NCAA, we didn't have lawyers on our staff. And when I say we didn't have a legal department at the NCAA, right, lawyers were on staff in enforcement and in compliance, but there was no central general counsel's office like there is today, right? And so all of these things have developed over time, and there's great opportunity, right, for young people who are interested in sports, from ticket sales to marketing and branding to how we do social media now, right, and highlights through social media, the content in that space. So there's several different ways for people now to be involved in sports that didn't exist at the time that I was entering into the league. So all of this has happened since I've been involved, and it's really great. And I think it opens the doors for people. They shouldn't think that it's just limited to being a player in the game or a coach in the game, but now it is all these other things that we do. Some clubs have their communications directors also from our historically Black colleges. So there's great opportunity for students from historically Black colleges in the sports space, particularly at the professional level.
So, of course, you're a proud 2-time HBCU graduate.
Yes.
So you're extremely familiar with HBCU culture and spending time on the yard to waiting in the financial aid line for your refund check. So how would So how would you describe your experience as a student? Like just being a student and being a student athlete, how would you say that experience has really shaped you?
Yes. All right. So you'd already mentioned one of the things that I did not like when I was at school, and that was the standing in line piece, right? Not so much for financial aid, but we had to stand in line for registration and for your books, right? So I'm gonna tell you how that impacts me today, that I cannot stand standing in line anywhere. I don't like standing in line at the grocery store, at the airport to check in, anywhere. So if I see a line, I hesitate and wait for it to clear up a little bit before I go to it.
I 100% agree.
Right? But yes. all joking aside, I mean, so that's still a positive impact, but it certainly didn't change how I feel about both Howard and Morehouse, right? It is the place where we develop as young people, and we turn into adults. It's the first time that we're really out on our own. We learn how to make new friends. I found my group of friends in the sports space, and being there, it allowed me to make connections with everyone that was on campus. So the fraternities and the sororities, those that weren't in fraternities or sororities, it was a great connecting space. The way we lived at the time on campus was that we were integrated with the full student body. So we ate in the cafeteria like everybody else did. So we were fully integrated with our student bodies, with our classmates. The best thing about college was that, particularly both places where we're the schools that we've attended, the liberal arts schools, you got a chance to, see the people involved in engineering. You saw people who were involved in music. You got a chance to identify and become friends with maybe people who were in the arts. And so you took advantage of all of those things that the campus had to offer. Even though we were political science majors and I was a political science, we got to focus in one particular area. The experience of being able to work with people who were math majors and business majors and interested in it at that time was computer science. All of those things, gave, I think, gave me the opportunity to see a vast world, right? That people were from all over the country. The best part was they all looked like us, right?
Right.
And so I always say that one of the things that I'm most comfortable with is seeing people that look like me in leadership positions, right? So the head of the political science department, the head of the music department, the head of the business department. And those are the people who evaluated you as to determine whether you were a good student or not, right? But so that part, I think we all became comfortable with, but it was also nurturing in that, as I said, when we apply what we know, that's the part that gets us through and makes us successful after we graduate from our institutions.
You did mention, kind of that connection that you had with your teachers and also with students around the campus. What would you say kind of, helped you, while you were at, 2 HBCUs to kind of, be very, very confident in yourself moving forward in your career?
Yeah. One of the things that happens is people always say, if you see it, you can be it. What we saw there are people who are successful, right? So you had the opportunity to see people at the top of their games. These were our professors are people who had master's degrees, PhDs, right? And they got their degrees at HBCUs and non-HBCUs, and they've gone to the Ivy League schools to come back to teach, right? So you saw what success looked like. And so it shouldn't be a surprise to any of us that we can't be successful in those spaces, right? And that's what I think that's one of the fundamental assurances that you have, right? And you can never forget that. The thing that we look back fondly on is in the political science department, our chairman was Dr. Brisbane, and he had, we call a cluster of students who met with him on Tuesdays for coffee. And you didn't get to his cluster for coffee until you were a senior. But he met with the seniors before class and after class for coffee, right? And those were some memorable moments in terms of being able to understand policy and politics and learning about government. And so those are moments that you have. And our class size was small enough that they didn't have TAs at the time that when we were in school. I don't know if they have TAs now. They might, but we didn't have them, and so we had direct access to the professors, no matter where they were. Right, that was kind of like his office hours, as they call them now, but they were always accessible to us, and so I think that leads towards the building of self-confidence that you carry forward. No matter what industry you're in going forward.
That right there teaches you most of what you learn in college. Just having that connection with your professor, it really helps you connect to the real world, I feel.
That's right. And so, part of it is always representing, right? So, so my background,
I was just asking about that.
But part of my background, the background piece is how we educate. And sometimes, we can educate people by being very forceful in our ways. We show up in our authentic selves, and that comes out in several different ways. My way is to subtly, introduce things to people. But as I said, we work at the National Football League. They've been playing football for over 100 years. And, and then we, in November, during the homecoming month, all of us who work there, we are prideful about our institutions. And so we wear our colors to the office. But my representation is this photo here. This is the 1901 varsity football team from Morehouse College. And so I tell people that, yes, the National Football League has been playing football for 100 years, but Morehouse has been playing football since 1901. Right. And so they're like, oh, wow, look at that. Right.
Right.
But it's a subtle way. And sometimes, you don't have to say anything, but somebody would ask, hey, so what is that behind you? Right. And then you get to explain it to people. And so that's why we say we show up in different ways with the same intent to educate and share and be prideful about places that we we've attended, just like everyone else does.
Right. I feel like we truly are the blueprint. Like you can literally see it here. We are really the blueprint for life. Yeah. That's absolutely amazing. And it's so interesting to me that they have JV and varsity even in college. That's actually, I feel like they should still do that nowadays.
Right. No. Yeah. It's rare that they do that. So this was, again, it was the first team, and it was their first varsity sport, because most of them in college, there's the intramural teams. So these were the schools. And what we say is that, and how we know that Howard played football, and started football a few years earlier. Right. But they were both founded in the same year, 1867. And so I have one of those in the background with both the Morehouse, the Graves Hall, and then the library. So from the main campus on Howard. And so I do those kind of things. You get a chance to do that through Zoom now, where we didn't have it before. Right. So yeah, we get a chance to celebrate who we are and show up in our as we young people now say, our authentic selves.
Yes.
Yes.
That's great. Yeah, so coming to the closing. So are there any final words of advice that you would like to offer to the students watching, or, any words that you would like to give of encouragement?
Oh, so yeah, this is always the hard question, right? Yeah. Because I know people are maybe waiting for me to say something so prophetic that is going to change their lives, but I don't know. I always feel too much pressure for that type of question, right? But here's what I would say that are sort of kind of like my guiding post for doing and being involved in this space and for young people going forward. And I also share it with my students when we teach it. And so one of the things I would say to everyone is don't rush your timeline, that your timeline is your timeline. And we mentioned that earlier, that it may take you longer than your colleagues to get to the point where you guys have established what would be determined to be successful. But always celebrate your colleagues as they progress. Mm-hmm. Right. So you have to be prepared to make the adjustment, and the adjustment is not failure. It's the adjustment. This is what we do in sports all the time. We call a play, it doesn't necessarily work. You have to make the adjustment or make the right read and within the same play to make it work. Right. And so you have to be flexible and be ready to make adjustments along the way. And then, you want to stay, and we say, stay within your core interests. Like I'd indicated earlier, mine was policymaking, right? And so fundamentally, the policymaking has been the core of my career. And, a couple of things that I truly believe is that you don't have to be the first, right? You don't have to be the only one. And when you should listen to others. And again, the things that we talked about is that you just apply what you know. And that's going to get you there. That's, if you apply what you know, you have the ability to show people how you live, what you've learned, and how you process information. And so to me, those are key points of success. And so those are things that I offer to not just the students here, but I share that with almost anyone I get a chance to talk to now. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Arthur, for joining us.
Thank you, Arthur.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Thank you all for tuning in to the HBCU Entertainment and Sports Summit. I hope you all enjoy. Bye.